Understand how this works inside object method and how bind method help prevent losing its reference when functions are used outside their original context. Let's look at how we can use the bind method to preserve this keyword in JavaScript. So let's go through the process of learning how we can use bind method to preserve this keyword in JavaScript. So here's my boilerplate code, and I don't have anything to do inside the HTML section. In my script tag, I have comments. So, and the comments itemizes the steps involved in setting this up. Number one, we need to create a person object. We need to add a display method. We need to access the object property. We also need to find a way to call the method and finally show the result. So, starting from step one, I'm going to make the person object. Person object. And the person's object is going to have first name. Let me call it John. Last name, Joe. And then display be a function. And inside it, I want to assign the value from getting the ID of an element. I want to assign its value to a variable called x, and inside it, x.inner html equals this dot first name plus this dot that name. So I want to update the content of this particular element with an ID of demo, and that is what I'm using the inner.html for. So I'm applying the inner.html property for the value stored inside the variable x. And now that I have this, I can come outside this function and then call it person dot. I want to call it display function because this is what carries our method and this is our object. So I'll just call it directly like this. And now you can see John Doe on the screen. So this is how you can use the bind method to preserve this in JavaScript. What we are basically learning is that when a function is called directly from an object, it points to that object. You can see that before this function is being called, you first need to access the object. But why that same function is separated from the object, JavaScript can lose track of what this was originally pointing to. So this example defines a person object with a method called display. Then the method uses these keywords to access the object first name, which is here, and last name, then display it on the page. So this here refers to the calling of the object. I am talking about the this dot first name and the this dot last name. This does not only call the values directly, but it refers to calling the object. And then object method also depends on how they are called. If you don't get how to call it right, then you are probably not going to get the expected result. For example, let's say I call this function directly. I think the result should go away. You can see it. But because I'm accessing the object first before accessing the method, then I was able to get the right output that is expected. Now, when you lose function context, then it can break this keyword. And bind can also lock to a specific object, just as what you can see right here in the example. Now, here are some of the key takeaways from this lesson. This is not fixed in JavaScript. It depends on how a function is called. Object method calls preserve this, just as you can see how we are calling an object here. Then bind method is used to permanently attach this to a function. The attach function lose their object references. So here in this example, we have a person object with a function called display. And inside the function, we are using the this dot first name and this dot last name. When we call person dot display, which is this last part of the code, JavaScript understand that this keyword belongs to this person object. So it correctly prints John Doe on the screen. Now, if you now decide to remove the function from the object and call it separately, it can lose track of what this particular part refers to, and that is where bind become useful. Using bind as allow becomes useful. It really help us lock the function to the original object so that it always points to the correct place. So this is how you can use bind. Sorry about that. The bind method to preserve this in your JavaScript code.